Well, we are now on December 17th. We're also Wednesday of the third week of Advent, but in Advent, once you hit the 17th, each day has their own set of readings. What you also have are what are known as the O antiphons, and these are the antiphons that precede the whole Christmas, and they are what are known as the O antiphons. You can hear them also in the song O Come, Emmanuel. Those are really the O antiphons. So we're going to look at what today is all about. So now we're going to hear about Judah in today's reading. It's a short reading, and what we're going to see here is Judah. This is going to be an important understanding because the person we are looking at today is the person of Judah, who becomes the head of the tribe of Judah, which ultimately becomes eventually the nation of Judah after Solomon. And with that, an interesting prophecy is made that Judah will always be around up until a certain point. This is an important understanding because you're seeing that Judah is around. That famous line where let me see if I can get this from this perspective. The famous line where we see the scepter, this is from the Revised Standard Version, Catholic Edition, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he comes to whom it belongs. This is rather significant because remember, we go back, now remember, this is chapter 49 of Genesis. If we assume, as traditionalists once did, that all the first 5 books of the Bible were back in the Torah. Genesis is the first book of the Torah. The first 5 books of the Bible were written by Moses. Then you're putting a time frame there as prior to even the formation of Israel. Okay, because remember, Moses died before going into the nation, going into the promised land. So the political entity that became Israel doesn't even exist yet. So neither does Judah. Judah doesn't exist until after the reign of David. This is written long before that. And what's the fascinating thing you see? Israel, remember, wiped off the face of the map in the 8th century. Judah does not disappear until after the death and resurrection and ascension of Jesus into heaven. And what does this prophesy? Exactly that. See? This is one of the things that people say, well, show me where those prophecies have come true. Okay, do you want to start? Where shall we start? And remember something else. This is huge. It's one of those things. I'll tell a little story. I've told it before on the show, but it kind of reflects this. It's one of those things you can easily miss. When I was at this very elite golf course, I was a caddy. I'm not from an elite family, a rich family. We were just down there helping, working for this very elite golf course. I'm talking very elite. Today, you cannot go to that golf course unless you've got some kind of a pass, and there is one road in. It's on an island, which has one road that was built so you can get onto the island. So technically, that's a peninsula. Yes, I know, but we'll call it an island. So this one road, and you can't even go beyond the gatehouse unless you are special or invited or whatever. So back then, it was a little looser, but not by much. So very elite golf course, people loaded. So you had people with tons of money, big names, the whole bit. And that it was essentially an island with this one road. Okay, so behind the 5th tee, there was a house, because there are all these houses around the golf course, mansions, and essentially. So there was this house behind the golf course. By the way, it's also important to note that many of these houses were summer houses. I've been down that path. We'll talk about that in another time. So it's behind the 5th tee. And there were some trees, but you can see the house pretty well. It's a white house. You can see the house. You can see the lawn, the whole bit. And there were these golfers we're caddying for, and they're going, wow, that guy's got a beautiful lawn. I've never seen a lawn so green. Now, we as the other caddies are looking and say, are they kidding? Are they being funny? Because on top of the lawn was a helicopter, right, sitting on top of the lawn, because the guy who owned the house had his own helicopter. So, and they're looking how beautiful the lawn is. Right? Now, granted, there were trees between us and them, but you can see the house pretty well. We can see the helicopter pretty well. So anyway, you got this beautiful, wow, that's the greenest lawn I've ever seen. Right? And we literally thought they were joking with each other because they're not talking about the helicopter, which is sitting on the lawn. And finally, one of the guys says, oh, wait a minute, guys. Am I imagining something, or is there a helicopter on that lawn? Oh, they finally saw it right in front of them. And the other, wait, there is a helicopter, and they finally recognized there's a helicopter. Okay, now why do I tell that story? It was the obvious. It's very obvious. What is Jesus? Jesus is the ultimate sacrifice to the Father. Okay, do we understand that? Jesus is the ultimate sacrifice to the Father. Every weekend, or every day, I'm sorry, in the temple, they used to sacrifice lambs and other animals just to mostly an unblemished lamb, going all the way back to Passover. They would sacrifice lambs to God every single day. I think it was several times a day, too, because the Jews do not believe in human sacrifice. Remember, the Aztecs and the Mayans and the Incas used to do human sacrifice to the tune of each tribe. I don't know about the Incas, actually. I can definitely say the Aztecs and the Mayans, of each tribe, 1,000 a day. Okay, so the Jews don't believe in human sacrifice. Many other tribes around them did. And so what would happen is they would sacrifice lambs and other animals. After Jesus' death and resurrection, roughly 40 years later, not quite, Rome comes in, wipes out Judah for the first time. Wipes out Judah, not for the first time, wipes out Judah, and destroys the temple. And the only place the Jews could do that sacrifice was in the temple. That day, the sacrifice ended and has not happened since. Why? And there's an important point to this. Why? Because Jesus is the ultimate sacrifice. It's right there in front of you. It's right there on the Temple Mount. There is no temple. Now, do understand that the temple was destroyed and rebuilt. So it's been destroyed twice, rebuilt once. It's never, in 2,000 years, it's never been rebuilt. The temple was built by Solomon. It was destroyed by the Assyrians. No, I'm sorry, by the Babylonians. Rebuilt by Cyrus the Persian. And then it was destroyed by the Romans, never to exist again. Okay, it's the Temple Mount. On top of the Temple Mount is a mosque. It's called the Dome of the Rock. Because there's a mosque there, the Jews cannot rebuild the temple. Okay, it's part of their law. They can't rebuild the temple. All right, now, do you see, that's one of these great, powerful signs that no one notices, but it's right there. Yeah, Jesus was the ultimate sacrifice. There is no longer a need for animal sacrifice. And so it stopped by God's hand, in a sense. So we look at that. But here is the other part of this prediction. What does this prediction make? It says, up until that time, this is in Genesis, up until that time, Judah will be the powerful one. And Judah exists right up until the fall of Judah by the Romans after the death and resurrection of Jesus. Death, the resurrection, ascension of Jesus, several decades later. There it is. This is predicted in Genesis. Genesis, if we go by the traditional understanding, if we don't, the time frame isn't that much different. Genesis was written many centuries, maybe almost 2 millennia prior to this moment, prior to the fall of Judah. So again, this is the time where we're looking forward to prophecies, and we're also looking back at prophecies that came true. This is what Advent is all about. Why? Because they are reminding us that as it has been prophesied that Jesus will come back, you can go to the bank with that fact. You can take that, that's it. Take that to the bank. Jesus will come back. Orient your lives accordingly. Do you see? So this is an important consideration. It really is. And this is, again, what we're talking about in Advent. So, again, go back to what I was talking about on Monday, that whole concept of time and that reality that when we look at the Bible, also the movie Interstellar, you're looking at several concepts of time happening at the same time, okay? A better way to edit that would be simultaneously, because it just sounds better. Okay, several concepts of time happening simultaneously. You have human time and you have God's time. And God is saying to the humans, in my time, God's time, this is what's going to happen. To the humans, he is letting them know. They don't know when this is going to happen. They've come to assume it's not going to happen in their time, but they're recognizing some powerful things in what the Lord is saying. So why are those sayings there? Well, for various reasons, but one of them is for you, because you're in this time. And you're able to look back and see that this is true. And it's a powerful thing, because what's he saying? Judah will not cease to exist until the one who is to come takes his authority. Once that happens, then what happens to Judah, we'll find out then. And there it is. And now we see that that's exactly what happened. Keep that in mind. Go back to my story yesterday. You're driving down the street and someone knows the whole street. Yeah, then you're going to come to a stop sign. Right next to the stop sign is a library. Wow, I came to the stop sign and there's a library, just like he said. That's what Advent is all about. And again, go back to Emmaus, right? We don't understand this whole story. This Jesus who we put all our hope in, he died on a cross. Now he resurrects. But we're not figuring out. That's what people say. We're not so sure. Remember the road to Emmaus from Luke? And there is Jesus, and he explains all the scriptures, how the scriptures spoke of him and how this was predicted to happen, and this is happening. So what is the message of Advent? You can go to the bank with the fact that we put our hope in the Lord, and the Lord will come back. And this is a powerful message. So, when we understand that, we also understand the great power of the Lord, because not only do we see this prediction of what's coming in the future, but we also understand that if God is that powerful, he is powerful in your life. Make sure that you stay close to the Lord. And when you are finding yourself, say you fall into a pattern of sin or whatever, and you become this whole aspect of, oh, I've sinned, the Lord wants nothing to do with me, he probably doesn't like me, the whole bit, you can throw that away. Because if you understand that God is bigger than time, then God is bigger than you. And if God is bigger than you, then don't worry about your sins. Remember, what leads you into hell is not sin, it's unrepented sin. And that's important. And some of the people who are teaching false doctrine on YouTube and teaching all this, that, you could end up in hell and all this other stuff, when they're not teaching what the church actually teaches, they're in sin. And they don't recognize this because they think they're so smart. And they're in sin because what are they teaching? They're teaching you an image of God, which is false. They're teaching you an image that has no mercy, and they're teaching you a smaller God, a God who is going to be offended by you, whereas God is bigger than that, and he wants to draw you closer to him because he knows the bigger picture. So always trust in him. Always bring all your difficulties to prayer with him. Always teach him And that's what you do. This is the important aspect. So keeping all of that in mind, we remember what the Lord does. The Lord is powerful. The Lord is great. We can see that. And we're going to talk more about this on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast. We're here every single Monday through Friday. We actually have a new Saturday program. We'll talk about that on the other part of the show. Subscribe, comment, and we'll be back later. Did you know that the Catholic Audio Media Podcast is available on various podcast platforms? You can find us, among others, on Podbean, which is our home platform. You can find it on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeart, among others. Just look for Catholic Audio Media, all one word. On some platforms, such as Spotify, look for Catholic Audio Media, 3 words, and subscribe and listen to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out. Patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. So now we're looking at this powerful message, and we're looking at this whole reality of seeing this. And so how does that affect the way you're going to live your life? Especially that's what Advent's all about. Because now I am showing to you, and will be showing to you for the next week, that this message is real. That this is real. It reminds me of a time that happened a long time ago. I had experienced what the charismatics call the baptism of the Holy Spirit. And I know some people like the charismatic renewal, some people don't. I'm not going down there. I work with a lot of people from Latin America, and the Latin Americans embrace the charismatic renewal. The Americans did not, and many of the Europeans did not. They did for a time, but then it kind of passed away. And part of the reason, I will say, and this is probably one of the big differences between the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere, is that the leadership of the church in the Northern Hemisphere rejected the charismatic renewal. The leadership in the church in the Southern Hemisphere did not. And the interesting thing to keep in mind is that the charismatic renewal is based on the charisms that are listed in the Bible in 1 Corinthians 12. They're also mentioned in the Catechism of the Council of Trent. They're also mentioned in the Catechism of Vatican II. So all these people say this is Protestantism. It's not Protestantism. It never has been Protestantism. But why did the Protestantism come into the charismatic renewal? Because the leadership of the church didn't want anything to do with it. And so the charismatics at the time had to look at the people who were trying to understand this, and that was the Protestants. That's why. There you go. Thank you very much. And I lived through it. I know this whole story. So we go back, and when I say leadership church, I'm talking the United States and Europe. I'm not talking the Vatican. So, and maybe I should add on top of it, like for example, Council Nova is charismatic, works very closely with the bishops of Brazil. So there you are. The leadership of the church is working with the charismatic community in Brazil and other countries, not so much here in the United States. So anyway, I had experienced this baptism in the Holy Spirit. So I'm talking to a priest who was part of the charismatic renewal. He had one of them who had spoke to us during the Life in the Spirit seminar, which was, I think, 8 weeks long. It was eight weeks long. I went to Sacred Heart Church in San Diego. It was on Pacific Beach, San Diego, because I was a sailor at the time. New to the church and everything else. So in any case, and I spoke to him, and he said to me, we're on the phone, he's real. And I went, oh yeah, he definitely is. Because I had this experience that taught me, which we talked about earlier this week, that there is this whole aspect of the spiritual world that many people reject. They don't understand. And they say it doesn't exist, especially in the atheist community. There is no spiritual world, they will tell you. They only believe in the material world. Therefore, they don't believe in the spiritual and the mystical. But we believe all of this is true. So when we're looking at these powerful words, we're looking at this spiritual world is real, so we want to embrace it and understand it without turning our back on the material world. When you do that, then you get into some of the other heresies and also pagan religions, because there's a lot of spiritualism in paganism which rejects the material. And you don't want to be down that path. We embrace both aspects of the human body. The atheists tend to embrace the material and reject the spiritual. Some pagan religions embrace the spiritual and reject the physical, the material, and we embrace them both. And what we believe is the Lord is guiding the material world and the spiritual world to ultimately be united with him as human beings, and that's what heaven is all about. Do understand that heaven, people will say things like, once someone dies and they go to heaven, they become an angel. Well, there are Bible verses that say something like that in poetic language, but that's not true, because you're not an angel. An angel is purely a spiritual force, a spiritual being. Whereas we believe in the spiritual and the physical, so you cannot experience the fullness of heaven unless you are there body and soul, which is why Jesus resurrecting from the dead, which is an Easter story, I understand, is so important. But you do realize this. So this whole Advent, we're seeing clear evidence that the whole concept of God speaking to his people is real. And we continue to embrace that, but we continue to go with that. And that's how you want to bring your life. The church is there to teach you this dynamic, but we also have to be careful. Because the church, when speaking to the entire church, speaks in generalities. And there's also that personal aspect. And the church has teaching that brings that in, but many people don't teach that. And this is where it's a problem. For example, the church has the concept of levels of culpability. Many people will teach that certain sins are always mortal sins. That goes against church teaching. Those two facts cannot be true. Now, that doesn't mean, so what it means is certain sins are wrong no matter what, but there are mitigating factors that may reduce someone's culpability. That's what we believe. And that takes the whole reality and brings it into a personal level too. And so you need both sides. That's why confession is important. But you take your reality and you live it with the understanding that you're following the truth. The truth is what we see in what Christ teaches, and what the Bible teaches, and what the church teaches all together. But realize this whole message comes to us over centuries, and we have different ways along the line that this message is proven to be true. So we see that, we recognize it, we understand that. These are powerful truths that we recognize and see that bring us to this powerful message that we prepare ourselves for in Advent. And what are we looking forward to in Advent? The coming of the Lord. And why are we doing that? Because the Lord said he was coming. And why do we believe that? Because everything else he said came true. And this powerful message today, Judah existed until 70 AD, until after the death and resurrection of Jesus. That's it. Judah existed until that point. Now we have Israel as one nation. that started in 1948 AD. And then we go back and we look at these powerful words in Genesis and we see that it was predicted in Genesis. In Genesis. And there is no way that this was written after the fall of Jerusalem and after the fall of Judah, and they just happen to, go back and edit this to put this in. No. This is an important consideration. So this is Advent. Where is your hope? Is your hope in the Lord? Are you realizing that this is true, and is your hope in the Lord? Put your hope in the Lord, believe in that hope, and the Lord is going to guide you as he promised. You see some pretty powerful stuff there. And we can talk more about that as we go through right up until Christmas. But right now, we are in 8 days before Christmas on December 17th. That is the name of the day. We're going to come back right after this. You're listening to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Life can be challenging, but amidst the trials and tribulations, there is wisdom to be found. Welcome to Sirach 2, a chapter filled with timeless guidance and insights from the book of Sirach. In this chapter, we learn the importance of remaining steadfast in our faith, even in the face of adversity. It teaches us to be patient, for trials can shape our character and lead to spiritual growth. Seeking wisdom and understanding is of utmost importance. Sirach 2 reminds us to study the teachings of the wise, be open to correction, and follow God's commandments. By doing so, we can find true fulfillment and blessings. Don't be discouraged by the temporary prosperity of the wicked or the challenges you may face. Trust in God's justice, for he rewards those who diligently seek him. Join us on this journey of faith as we discover the path to a meaningful and fulfilling life. Sirach 2 is your roadmap to wisdom, patience, and eternal blessings. Read Sirach 2 and let its timeless wisdom guide you through life's ups and downs. Available now in the book of Sirach, part of the Old Testament. Brought to you by the Voice of St. Anthony Parish in Alston. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out. Patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media.
We're back. So tomorrow we're going to be in Jeremiah, and we're going to see some of the powerful things there. So that moves us several thousands, it's going to actually about 1,500 years ahead of time. I'm just doing that off the top of my head. I haven't done the exact math, and probably I'd get it wrong if I did the exact math. Then we're going to be in Judges, and then on Friday, we're going to find ourselves... Oh, wait a minute. No, I got this wrong. No, tomorrow. I got this wrong. See? Didn't I just tell you I can't do math? Okay. Tomorrow we're going to be in Jeremiah. Friday we're going to be in Judges. Anyway, so it is. And as we look at this, then next week we're going to continue through Advent right up until Thursday, when obviously we will be in Christmas. So you see, Advent is this powerful time, not only to help us to look forward to Christmas and the second coming of Christ, but to look back at all that the Lord has done and gone, wow. We can see that from our perspective and see some powerful things and some powerful truths that are there. It's really fascinating, and bring us back to that concept I talked to you on Monday. When you're dealing with God, you're dealing with two aspects of time simultaneously. That's a mind-expanding reality. Now go watch the movie Interstellar, and then bring that back to your prayer and understanding, and you'll see what I mean. And there's nothing religious in Interstellar. So we'll see you tomorrow. Have yourself a blessed day. The Catholic teaching in this podcast is reflected and presented as accurately as possible. The opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Archdiocese of Boston or any other institution.